Coming up next on the CHGO Cubs Podcast Emergency Edition. Whoop, whoop. They are alive. The Cubs on the verge of a huge trade. Let's talk about it next. Hey, Chicago, what do you say? It is an emergency edition of the CHGO Cubs Podcast. Can you believe it? Here we are. Unlock the possibilities with Xfinity. Learn more at Xfinity.com. Xfinity, imagine that. And imagine that, Joey Christopoulos. The Cubs are finalizing a deal, first reported by our guy, Michael Cerami, finalizing a deal for a frontline starter in Edward Cabrera from the Marlins. Luke Stuckmeyer, Joey Christopoulos with you. Hopefully people are finding out about the emergency pod here and jumping on the live YouTube chat. We've got a lot to talk about. First of all, I'm just happy that there's a functioning heartbeat. That we've got something to talk about, that we don't just have to say they're thinking about it. No, everybody says now, this is just pending the medicals, get it done, and get Cabrera in the building.
This is all happening in real time, Luke. So I will tell you right now that, like, I am exactly feeling that you're feeling. I began the show on Monday saying I think we might have hit rock bottom in the offseason. And now I am the Rocketeer with a jetpack stretched to my back, hurtling into the stratosphere. I feel like a chia pet that has water and then it's starting to bloom and blossom. I have cables connected to my nipples right now, and my battery is
now we've gone too far.
Why? Come on, baby. Spring training right around the corner. Look, this has been long rumored. For the people that are jumping in the chat, thank you so much for hopping in. Our resident guy in the chat, Gary Ross, has been saying all along that he wants or he believes that Edward Cabrera was going to be a Chicago Cub. This is something that we talked about last summer, and now it is on the 1 yard line. It is on the doorstep. The Chicago Cubs get what they want, a controllable arm with, we'll get into it, some really nasty stuff. And also Chicago Cubs fans get what they want, a starting pitcher that can maybe be a 1-2 punch with Cade Horton. It's great news, right? It just not done yet. Very, very close, but why not be excited, Cubs fans? Get excited.
Listen, I said in our resolutions yesterday that if the Cubs can get a frontline starter done still, and they can still get a bat that they are lacking, those are the two biggest things still missing. Obviously, it's not a perfect team, but like those are the two big things they have to accomplish this offseason. If Jed can still do that, I won't question him the rest of the season. I'll say go with it. And Cabrera is not perfect. We will talk about the possibilities of what's good, what's bad, what could happen, right? And, of course, we got to wait and see the names that are going back. But I've seen Jesse Rogers say no top-tier pitching prospects are going back that way. We assume that Owen Caissie is going probably to the Marlins because the Marlins wanted him last year when this deal was talked about. And we should point out that while it's finalizing, right, and everybody's first it was Cerami, then it was Rosenthal, and bang, 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 everybody started reporting Heyman. We should point out that they had a deal that was very close for Jesus Luzardo with medicals. Same team last year, didn't work. We didn't get him, and he ended up being great last year for the Phillies. So here we go. What do we have, and what would we be acquiring in Edward Cabrera? Well, of course, you're going to want to hear this week from the pitch doctor, Brendan Miller. Now, we're
who may or may not still join this show, Luke. We'll see. Yes. He said bathroom.
He's working on it. He's trying to decide if he can get to a parking lot, a bathroom stall, the back of a cab. He's going to try and jump on. He's going to be the one that you're going to want to hear. So even if you listen to this whole podcast today, you're still going to want to find out what the pitch doctor has to say on Thursday. Okay. That's one thing for sure. But this guy has something that Cubs pitchers don't. And it's one of the reasons they focused on him. He's electric and he throws heat. Now, when a guy throws a changeup that's 94 miles an hour, that's different than anything the Cubs are throwing out there. It's completely different. And when his four-seam fastball averages 97, that's something the Cubs don't have on a regular basis either. He's, by the way, he's right-handed. He's totally different. He fits in perfectly in this way, and he's under control. Now, remember, the pitch doctor will tell us the fastball is somewhere where he could still work a lot. Right, Joey? Like, there's a lot of work to still be done. But just gut reaction to it is, I like the deal. When we talked about hearing about Cabrera, and we'll get to this throughout the podcast, he's going to be 28 in April. He's under control for 3 seasons. So the Cubs love that. And that doesn't come at a small price. So for those of you that are going to cry about Owen Caissie, if he's part of this deal, which most likely he is, you got to give something up to get a controllable high-end arm in Major League Baseball. That's just a fact of it. Now, if they have to give up somebody else that you're not happy about, I understand that. But the names that I've heard so far seem very, very reasonable.
Yeah, 100%. And even a player like Jefferson Rojas, I think there's some differing opinions whether even in the deal too as well. A 20-year-old player who's flew through the major leagues, has a really great hit tool. People worry about his ceiling in terms of power and defense, but a guy at 20 years old that's accelerated through the minor leagues, you got to like that as a hitting profile. When we talk about the trade package going all the way back to last summer, I think that was some of the fear, right?
Mm-hmm.
Of if you want to, it's not even prospect hugging to say it would worry you a little bit if you got rid of your best corner outfield prospect, your best pitching prospect, or your best corner infield prospect, which was Matt Shaw at the time. 2 of those 3 in a deal would make you go, man, this guy better be worth it. But if it is just Owen Caissie, that is the price of doing business. And the price of doing business is bringing in Edward Cabrera. Let's stick with the pros for right now. We've got an hour to do some of the cons and some of the worries, and we'll dive into all that, right? But you mentioned the 97-mile-an-hour fastball. You mentioned the 94-mile-an-hour changeup, the changeup that he uses most. He throws it 26% of the time, and he uses a devastating curveball. Just skimming through Baseball Savant, Luke, I told it to you pre-pod. He threw 531 curveballs last year. Opponents hit 142 against that curveball. They had a whiff percentage of 45% and a K percentage of 44%. We call that back in the day an out pitch.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And if the four-seam fastball at 97 is only 13%, I would love to see what the sequence and situation of that is. Is that a kill shot pitch? Is that just when he rears back and pumps it up a couple extra miles per hour? So there's a lot to like about Edward Cabrera from the sense of just being a pitcher. He had a rough first month of the season with an ERA over 7. The rest of the way, barring 1 month, which I believe was a 4 ERA, everything else was sub 3. I mean, this guy can be paired with Cade Horton as a 1-2 punch. And not to get too far ahead of ourselves either. When we talk about Edward Cabrera now in the fold, I think as a Cubs fan, it is fair to expect and get excited about the anticipation of now the Cubs should have enough money now to go out and acquire an impact bat via money. I think a lot of Cubs fans were a little hesitant, even cynical, that buying a pitcher and buying a hitter seemed not very likely. That the trade and the sign route was maybe the way to go for the Chicago Cubs. If Edward Cabrera, this deal does get finalized, this then opens up that door for Cubs fans to now get excited about maybe Bo Bichette, about maybe Alex Bregman too as well. So this isn't just one deal when it goes through for the Cubs. This could be multiple deals, which is great news for the Cubs and getting them back to where we wanted them to be when they finished last season, which was 1 game away from the NLCS.
Yeah, I mean, it's you have to give up something to get something. And the Cubs have pushed their first major domino of the offseason. It was nice that they were spending $30 million in rebuilding the bullpen and going with some different guys and adding a guy from Japan. All those things are nice, but and some may prove to be big deals once the season gets going. But we know that they had to make a couple major moves here this offseason to improve this team and take them above the Brewers. You can't keep saying we're doing small things and hoping to catch the Brewers by just keeping your head above water. You got to lean in and you got to go for it. Now, I've already seen one person in the chat say, yeah, but now if Caissie's gone, who's going to play outfield in 2027? We can't have it both ways. We can't make fun of them for talking about the health of the Cubs in 2032 and then say, worrying about who the outfield. Somebody may give you a nice deal and say, I'm willing to stay. One of your young outfielders still may develop. Is Alcantara going to be in this deal? Probably not if Caissie is in on the deal. And you start to look at other players in the system, and you look at other players that can – listen, you can find corner outfielders. What you can't find for the 2026 season is a young pitcher under control with some asterisks next to him because of the health, but unquestionably makes your rotation better. Now, when you look at that rotation right now, and you mentioned it, Horton and Cabrera, there are a lot of guys. This is what I was saying about it. We were taking a lot of what ifs and hopes going into this season with the way it was currently set in the rotation because of injuries, because of past injuries, which are generally the best way to say, well, this might happen moving forward, right? And so that same can be said of Cabrera. I'm not saying that's not true, but look at the list. Cade Horton finished the year with an injury. Cabrera actually finished the year with an injury. Boyd has never thrown that many innings in a long time. Steele, when he comes back, will be coming off of Tommy John. Tyone was healthy. You're waiting on Imanaga to try and fix things. But look at the list of guys. They've started to build that starting pitching depth. And when it got done at the end of the season, guys, it was the biggest problem. They didn't have the starting pitching depth. So while each guy on this list may have something where you could say, yeah, but you can also, because the list is so big, you can have more of those, well, what ifs in those names, because there's not just five guys anymore. You could go Horton, Cabrera, Boyd, possibly Steele halfway through the season, Tyone. You realize that's five. I haven't even mentioned Imanaga being back.
Colin Ray, Javier Assad, Ben Brown, Jackson Wiggins.
And we don't know who's all going back, but it sounds like it's not Wiggins. I'm just saying, if you're talking about guys that have proven it at the major league level, Horton, Cabrera, Boyd, Steele, Tyone, Imanaga, Ben Brown. I mean, like, how many guys do you want to go down? This was a move the Cubs had to make, and that's why you have to bite the apple and say, I know this apple could be bad for me, but I'm willing to trade Owen Caissie, who we've developed for a long time, because this is who that team wanted, and they have something we want. Did it come down to the fact that maybe if Mackenzie Gore was the other name, did they want Jackson Wiggins? And that's how you push to this level, right? Like if he's not involved in this deal, then what? Okay, he's got less. He's not as healthy as Mackenzie Gore, but you're also not giving up Jackson Wiggins possibly either.
Well, so guess what? So first of all, 2027 left field. All right, Teoscar Hernandez, Ian Happ, Nick Castellanos. Who cares? Okay, like let's live in the now right now, because this is the window and a solid Cubs core with about 8 guys that are in walk years next year. So the time to win is right now. So let's just focus on that. The second part is, Luke, I remember we did a show in the waking hours or days after they got eliminated. And you said something that the Cubs are now in position to do. You wanted so many starting pitchers on this team.
Yes.
That one, if a couple of them go down, no big deal. But two, guess what, Luke? I get it. It's January right now. But if the Cubs ever wanted to go back to the table for a Mackenzie Gore situation and Edward Cabrera checks out, guess what? You could put Jackson Wiggins and Javier Assad or Jameson Tyone or whatever into a deal and now get that done and maybe do a Horton Cabrera Gore situation if you wanted to. You now have depth in ways that you did not before. And for the Chicago Cubs and their farm system, they have done a pretty decent job of at least developing or locating through maybe via trade bats, offensive players. They've done an okay job. They don't do a great job with the pitching. We'll see if Jackson Wiggins can live up to the Cade Horton, but Cade Horton is the first that we've seen in quite some time, and Ben Brown is an either or for me heading into this year. So the Cubs seem to be pretty good about developing offensive talent. So I'm not too worried about that. And then the other part about this is Luke, think about it also like this. Owen Caissie was in the Yu Darvish trade. Yeah. You know what I mean? And now the Yu Darvish trade has not only come to fruition, maybe not in the way that you thought, with these prospects come up and they become, staple guys in your lineup. And we don't know about Christian Hernandez and everybody else, but Owen Caissie has now turned into Edward Cabrera, a guy who's going to make $3.7 million this year, and then is arbitration control eligible for the next 2 years after that into his age 30 season. So, it's funny how these things roll over a little bit, but if you're going to start worrying about the 2027 Cubs, I don't have anything for you today, man, because this is about the 2026 Cubs. And if Edward Cabrera checks out, then that will also fulfill your 2027 wishes too as well, because that means you got to top at least a number 2 or number 3 starter in your rotation for years to come.
Waiting for the medicals to be finalized. Cubs potentially have a big deal. It's a breaking news edition of the CHGO Cubs podcast. Take a quick break to mention some of our sponsors. When we come back, I want to know from the chat, what's your grade for acquiring Edward Cabrera here on the CHGO Cubs podcast? Okay, what if you could have reliable and intelligent Wi-Fi? And what if you could keep it for the same price for 5 years? That's amazing. The Xfinity 5-year price guarantee. Imagine Wi-Fi that makes everything in your home work together, that finds and fixes problems before you even know about them, like super intelligent Wi-Fi with a sixth sense that lets you stream the game even while your whole family is online at the same time. All your devices working in perfect harmony for 5 whole years. Not 1, not 2, not 3, not 4, 5 whole years. And here's the best part. No annual contracts, no hidden fees, and Xfinity's best equipment is included. Take it from me, a lot can change in 5 years. Championships are won, records are broken, dreams grow bigger, but what your Wi-Fi, come on, that's got to stay reliable, and the price should stay put. Lock in your price, unlock the possibilities with Xfinity. Learn more at Xfinity.com. Xfinity, imagine that. Select plans only, restrictions apply.
And hey, sports fans, it's winter out there, even though it's spring inside of my body. And you got to ask the question, though, outside right now, is your home's heating? Is it up for the challenge? You got a plumbing emergency, you got to call Four Seasons. An electrical emergency, you call Four Seasons. You need a new hot water tank installed today, you call Four Seasons, because right now is the time to schedule your Four Seasons furnace tune-up. Thinking about a whole home generator, they've got you covered, because at Four Seasons, they guarantee same-day installation for all your heating, cooling, plumbing, electrical, and generator needs with no extra costs for nights, weekends, or holidays. So right now, save up to $4,000 on furnaces and comfort systems with Four Seasons heating, air conditioning, plumbing, and electric. Furnaces starting at $39 a month. Furnace AC combos at $57 a month. Call today and save $50. They've been serving the Chicagoland area for over 50 years. So visit fourseasonsheatingcooling.com for all their special offers and money-saving coupons. That's fourseasonsheatingcooling.com.
Back on the CHGO Cubs Emergency Podcast Edition. Michael Cerami, the first to report the Cubs finalizing on the 1-yard line a deal for Edward Cabrera pending these medicals, which not necessarily nothing. I don't want to put that on there. So let's get to the medicals part of this, and then we'll take a look at what some of the chat is saying. It is time for your Taking the Temp segment. Huh? How about that? Taking the Temp, your trusted local experts. Four Seasons Heating, Air Conditioning, Plumbing, Electric. Visit fourseasonsheatingcooling.com for all their special offers and money-saving coupons. fourseasonsheatingcooling.com. How do you take the temp?
I'm running a little hot, Luke. Running a little hot. I'm going to say that.
Listen, I've taken my temp plenty in the last 3 weeks. Okay? So I know I'm a little bit of an expert about stuff like this. There is one major question mark about this deal, and everybody knows it's the medicals, because like I said, the best predictor of what's going to happen in the future is sometimes what's happened in the past. Doesn't mean all the time, but here is a player. There's two sides of it. It was a career high 26 starts he had for the Marlins last year, but the list of injuries, and when I say injuries, mostly arm injuries, that's what's really sort of scary about this guy. And I've seen some people in the chat saying, our guy Ron's here's a controllable frontline starter 3 years at a low cost. It's an A. I would agree with that. but anything that knocks it down to a B would have to be because of these injuries. Now, he's had shoulder impingement. He's had apparently a slight tear in his UCL. Now, he pitched with that at the end of the season. He was on the injured list plenty. You know, he's had knee injuries, ankle injuries, migraines, shoulder injuries, elbow injuries. I don't care about the migraines. I don't care about the blisters. I don't care about the ankle. I don't care about the knee. What I care about is the arm, and that's what they have to finalize and make sure they're okay with. But we know there's some risk with it. You know who else had a ton of injuries and there was a risk? This deal reminds me of Rich Harden.
Oh, yeah.
You know?
Oh, yeah.
Like, this reminds me of getting Rich Harden. High upside. He can fit in your rotation, and you hope they don't throw in Josh Donaldson. You know? Yeah, we hope they're not throwing in Josh Donaldson in this deal. In this case, maybe Owen Caissie turns out to be that guy. But if this player ends up being healthier than Rich Harden was and delivering it, you won't care that you traded Owen Caissie. Trust me. If Cabrera pitches up to his potential and stays relatively healthy, you will live with the fact of whatever Owen Caissie does, even if it's spectacular.
Right. We've got, I see here, right elbow tendonitis in 2022, shoulder impingement in 2023, 24, and 25, the slight UCL tear, excuse me, towards the end of 2025. You know, the part that you worry about a little bit is I don't really see anywhere on the internet of him having, you know, the two letters that we don't like to hear, right? Yeah. You always kind of worry about that a little bit. The good news is, though, prior to our previous segment, let's say you can't just say it's all roses going forward, and maybe it's something that he deals with from time to time. In a long Major League Baseball season, maybe his arm, whatever it is, it's tired, inflamed, he feels a little discomfort, whatever it is, they have to back off of him. Good news for the Chicago Cubs is the depth that we just talked about previous section, where Javier Assad could come in, other guys can take its place. Colin Ray can take its place. The bottom line is for 2026, Luke, is the Cubs and Edward Cabrera need to do everything that they can to make sure that he's 100 in September and October.
Mm-hmm.
That's it.
Yeah.
If you got to back off of him in July or August or whatever, we should have the reinforcements to be able to do that and still go off and win baseball games. The bottom line, at least for this season, and I think the reason why you're making this trade beyond the controllable years, is this guy needs to be ready to roll in September and October. And that's what's so funny about Cade Horton, was they were actually doing a really good job, I feel, of pitch count, trying to back off of him a little bit. They were managing his innings. He had never been through it before. And then whatever, the guy smokes a cigar, coughs too hard, and then he breaks his ribs. You know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah.
you can't predict that injury. I think there is some maintenance and some preventative care that you can do with Edward Cabrera to try and get him through a season. But that's the whole thing, man. You need your horses when you need your horses, and that's the only thing that I'm really thinking about when I think about Edward Cabrera. I don't need him to make 32 starts. I mean, that isn't something that typically happens with pitchers these days, right? But you just want to make sure that it isn't something that is a larger issue with him that could take him off the field for a really long extended period of time.
Yeah, I mean, guys, I feel going into the beginning of the season, I think last year we still felt like they were short an arm, and that was before Steele went down for the season.
Yeah.
What they have built, even though a lot of guys have arms that could be tired, they've rebuilt the bullpen, so they're not rolling the dice necessarily on all the same guys in the bullpen. And maybe somebody that's in that bullpen will be the sweetener on this deal. We don't know. We don't have the names officially from the Cubs, what it was that sweetened it and got this deal across the finish line. But when I look at a playoff series and I can go, let's just say everybody's healthy. Horton, Cabrera, Boyd. Horton, Cabrera, Boyd, Steele. We're not even talking about having Imanaga, who could bounce back and who was arguably your ace, right? Like, you're not even talking about him, and you're not talking about Tyone, and you're not talking about Ben Brown. And a lot of those names, if they're still on the team, can go into the bullpen. They can help you in the bullpen. We're not looking at a situation where you're saying, am I pitching Colin Ray or am I going Javier Assad? That's not what we want in a winner-takes-all game going against some team in a playoff series, especially if you're in one of these short series with the Padres. You got to go bang, bang, bang. And with the way some of these hitters are locking in now, pitching is one of the ways you can compete with a team like the Dodgers. Heaven forbid if you get to some point like that. But I think it's also a way that you can step on a team like the Brewers. Go all in one part. I don't know if the Cubs, I don't know what the next move is. But this is a nice first domino to have in your back pocket. There's room to fix the offense. And Joe, you mentioned at the beginning, I'm still not against this. Like I'm not still against like the idea of Steele turns out to be healthy and legit. And that's what we're all hoping for. And Imanaga does fix whatever he was going on at the end of last season. And now you have Steele, Imanaga, Boyd, Cabrera, Horton, maybe Jackson Wiggins comes up. And guys, as much as I love them, you would have Tyone on an expiring deal. You'd have Imanaga on an expiring deal. A lot of teams would be anxious to add one of those pitchers, and you can restock the farm system that way. Or you can go get that bat that you still might need, or you might go get that closer that you still need. What they're doing is stockpiling. I saw somebody say this screams of a 6-man rotation. It does when Steele comes back. Yeah, for sure it does.
I don't think I'd be upset with that.
I wouldn't be upset with an 8-man rotation the way baseball has gone. I wouldn't be mad if we started pitching these guys because their arms are so fragile. And there is I don't believe there's any data that tells you a guy's going to stay healthier because he pitched 4 innings instead of 6. But if you started doing lots of piggyback starts, I wouldn't be against trying that as a new philosophy in baseball. I've said it before. It sounds ridiculous. But if you do have a lot of starters halfway through the season, I'm not against it.
You just saw it multiple times throughout this last postseason. And you saw it a lot in the World Series. You saw guys like Chris Bassett coming in for the 5th and 6th inning of games, right? And I understand that Daniel Palencia was an out-getter and a fireman in our playoff series, so we had to bring him in the 5th or 6th inning of games. But I'm right there with you, Luke. And if you're talking about, we just did Cabrera, maybe a little concern there. Cade Horton hasn't finished a season healthy in a couple of years, and you're still asking yourself, what are the limits of his inning count and workload and burden that you could put on him? When you talk about Justin Steele coming back from injury, you talk about Shota Imanaga and his hamstring. We were having conversations about his Matthew Boyd out of gas, the calf strain of Jamison Tyone. It's all hands on deck, man. So if you're telling me that the Cubs can suddenly become a trendsetter and maybe start stretching some of this out a little bit and doing some rotations of a 6-man rotation. If Craig Counsell's going to sit here and say, I believe in out-getters, I don't believe in roles, well, then guess what? 5-man rotation isn't something that needs to necessarily be in our lexicon, right?
That's right.
And my other one is, again, we don't know the pieces. I've heard some stuff, but I don't want to just start throwing names out there. If their mothers and fathers are watching and they're going, oh my God, my young prospect kid is going to some other city, you know what I mean? But if it is only just Owen Caissie and some other people
as a headliner,
as the headliner in the prospect deal, there's probably going to be 3-4 guys. And if there is a sweetener, maybe there's a 5th. Keeping your powder dry still with a guy like Jackson Wiggins or even a guy like Matt Shaw provides you an opportunity still to go out and get really creative towards the deadline again. If you really wanted to go overboard again and bring somebody else in, I mean, you have an inventory now. And when this deal goes through, if this deal goes through, it will at the very least, when Jed says we're going to be focusing on pitching and starting pitching in the offseason, he wasn't joking around, right? I mean, that was a very transparent comment. And he's going for it, right? Like, I will always have a bit of a pushback on the way they go about it to try and make the money work, because you are the Chicago Cubs. You should make the money work for you, as in throw it at a bunch of great players, have them win a ton of games at Wrigley Field, and watch the money roll in, which it already is rolling in, right? They just had their 5th best attendance record in the last 25 years, right next to the World Series. They just played their 3rd most playoff games of the last 25 years, or honestly, probably the last 50 or 60 years. Because if you look at it, Luke, you got 2015, 2016, and then I think 2015, 2016, 2017, and then this season are the most playoff games they've played since probably the 60s or 50s, dude. So I'm always going to push back on that. But bringing in this type of player that obviously was coveted, that they've been looking at for a long time, it's a huge win for the Cubs, and it provides them a lot of flexibility and versatility on that pitching staff now that suddenly got really interesting.
Excuse me. We got to take a quick break. When we come back, I'm going to tell you the only way I see this deal being a true mistake. What would that be? Join us on the live YouTube chat. Give us your comments. But first, a word from our sponsors on the CHGO Cubs Podcast, Emergency Edition. The folks from Game Day Men's Health stopped by our office the other day. Just great people. Had great conversations with them, and they helped get us on the track to being healthy. Whether it's peak performance or becoming a better father, better husband, better man, better dog, dad, Game Day Men's Health wants to support every men's health journey through personalized care tailored to your goals, not somebody else's, your goals. Very easy, quick process. You'll be in and out in an hour. Personal care, family, locally owned clinics, extremely high success rate. Feel better and have more energy with testosterone, vitamin supplements, weight loss, hair loss treatments. They can do it all for you. Start your best life with Game Day Men's Health. Scan the QR code on the screen or go to GameDayCHGO.com to find the locations closest to you. They will take care of you. Tell them I sent you. All right, let's talk about your next weekend escape, or maybe just your next big night out, because Potawatomi Casino Hotel in Milwaukee has everything you need in one spot. We're talking thousands of the latest slots and table games. You ready to refuel? Well, good, because they got a ton of amazing restaurants and bars to choose from. I was there last summer, had a great time. Whether you're feeling fancy or just want a quick bite, they got you covered. You don't even have to leave the property. You can stay in style at their luxury hotel, just steps away from what many call the Midwest's best sports book. If you're heading to a Bucks game, maybe to see them play the Bulls, stay right there at the Potawatomi. Hit the sports book, then head out to the game and come home and relax in that luxury hotel. It's all right there, super convenient. Milwaukee's got a full winter lineup of concerts, festivals, sports, you name it. Potawatomi is the perfect home base for all of it. Potawatomi Casino Hotel in Milwaukee. Your win is waiting. All you got to do is go check it out. Back on the CHGO Cubs Podcast, Emergency Edition. Cubs finalizing a deal pending the medicals. Edward Cabrera for the Marlins, and we're not sure who the package is going back. Most people assuming Owen Caissie is the headliner, Michael Cerami the first on this. A few notes from Brendan Miller, the pitch doctor, that he sent along just in case he's not able to get locked in yet. He's trying to find that bathroom stall that he can hide in at work and send us a clip here.
A coworker's blowing it up right now, so he's doing the best he can.
He's working his magic here. He says, standout pitches, that changeup. 95 miles an hour on average. If he's coachable, a lot of paths forward to pitch to optimism. His curve is nasty. The Cubs may try to rework that fastball, because that was really his biggest problem. And if you match that fastball fixed up, a repaired four-seam fastball, if you can match that up with a changeup and you can, and the curve, now you're talking about potential, right? So I mentioned only ways that this turns out to be a big mistake. It's not the Cabrera injuries. Your price is lower already because of the Cabrera injuries. That's most likely the scenario, okay? Owen Caissie, I understand. People will say you have to go, but that's the price you would pay for somebody like this. In fact, I thought it would be more than some of the names that I'm hearing. If Jackson Wiggins were in on this deal, that's the only way I would hesitate about this. Their top pitching prospect. Now, yesterday we talked about it. They've done it before. They've traded Chris Archer away. They've traded Andrew Kashner away. And to a certain degree, both of those work just fine. Okay. It's why I've said Jackson Ferris was okay, because look what you got back. You got back Michael Busch, who could be playing first base for a long time and could be your superstar player over at first base. The reason I wouldn't trade Jackson Wiggins in this deal, and I don't believe the Cubs have, nobody has said right now, Jesse Rogers is saying no top pitching prospects. The reason I would agree with the Cubs not doing that is because of the injuries. You can't risk you can't risk the injuries versus the control of a top arm pitching prospect. It's not an apples for apples. But if you're telling me it's somewhere where you can go with Owen Caissie and you can find other outfielders, and that might mean you're bringing Seiya back and he might be in right, and Mo Baller could be your DH, or what we've heard about the possibilities that the Cubs are checking in on Kyle Tucker again because he's still out there.
Bruce. Yeah.
I mean, if you were to tell me that the Cubs brought back Kyle Tucker or added Bo Bichette or added Alex Bregman,
let's ride,
or Cody Bellinger, one of those four players.
Okay.
If one of those four players was added to this team along with Edward Cabrera, I would say, and you read on the bullpen, I would say job well done. It doesn't mean it's guaranteed to work, but I would say job well done. So I just am glad they didn't trade their top pitching prospect yet for a guy with a lot of injuries. There's a reason to make this deal, a lot of them. I would agree it's an A or a B deal, but that would be the one player I would have been hesitant to give up.
Right,
Jackson Wiggins.
That's why I feel like I've been fairly mid-warm. I would never say lukewarm, by the way. I think that's an insult. I think I've been a little mid-warm about the Edward Cabrera situation because every time we hear it, we're saying Caissie plus Wiggins or Caissie plus Shaw. And that makes me go, man, that is a stiff price for a guy that, man, he's got great stuff, but he hasn't really. I mean, last year was the first year that he's really kind of done it for 26 starts. And even then he had a couple of shoulder issues. So I'm 100% with you. But the fact that if it is only just Caissie and some other pieces, I am more willing to live with that and get more excited. Because also, these things, in a vacuum, these things all come with risk. Like, I get it. It's the Los Angeles Dodgers, okay? Mm-hmm. But giving Blake Snell $100 million, he's got injury history. Yeah. Tyler Glasnow has injury history. Michael King on the San Diego Padres has injury history, okay? And all those guys are getting 20, 25, maybe even $30 million a year. The Cubs decided to not go that route, but they are going a similar route with a guy that they believe has huge, huge, huge upside, but also has can he stay out there, stay out there a little bit. And if you look with all those guys that I mentioned, the three that I mentioned cost buku bucks, and all of them didn't necessarily make 30 starts, right? The idea is to have those guys when you need them the most. The part that I keep thinking about, Luke, and I wanted to pose this one to you, and I think we're ready to do it, is what do you think the Cubs think of Owen Caissie? Because he keeps popping up, baby. I mean, I get it. There's a lot of supporters of him out there. I believe he's 139 WRC plus in 99 games. Last year at AAA with 22 home runs, 55 RBIs. Those numbers are great. A lot of swing and miss in his game. Still very young player. His time to develop. But it seems like over at least since last July, Owen Caissie's name gets attached in almost every single trade linked to the Cubs. So at the end of the day, just maybe now that he possibly is moving on, what do you think it is ultimately that made him the number one guy in all these trade pieces for the Cubs? If you could just speculate, because
you know what my speculation is? I don't think it's anything against Owen Caissie. I think he's going to go on to be a really good major league outfielder. I think he's going to be a left-handed power guy, and he's going to strike out a bunch because that's what power guys do, and it's tough to close that hole that he may have in his swing, but he's still going to hit a lot of home runs. He's more athletic than I thought when I got to see him play in the outfield last year.
Yes.
But the Cubs are trying to acquire top-end players via these trades. They're not this isn't getting a mid-level pitcher. We're looking for near the top of our rotation type guy. And there are some risks because of the injuries, and we may have to fix something. He's not a perfect player, but you can see a path to this guy being a dominant pitcher in your rotation for 3 years. And you can't get that player from somebody, a controllable for 3 years guy who's making almost nothing this season. You can't get that player without giving up something of value. And the thing that other teams look at in the Cubs system right now in value, they say, okay, who do I want? I want Jackson Wiggins. I want Owen Caissie. I want Mo Baller. I want Cade Horton. And the Cubs probably said, no on Cade Horton. And they probably said no on Jackson Wiggins. So now you're down to Mo Baller and Caissie. And it doesn't mean that the Cubs valued one more than they valued the other. It means this is what it took to get the other team to bite. The other team might have said the same thing that some of us have said about Mo Baller's high ceiling. He doesn't have a position. Owen Caissie does have a position. He could play a corner outfield spot for you. I do believe
either of them. Yeah.
Either of them. So some teams may value that more than others, and the Cubs might have been dangling Alcantara in this and trying to hold out and say, no, Alcantara. Or it's possible that they were waiting for Jackson Wiggins on the other side and they said no, and the Yankees aren't going to go up as high as we are. So here's the deal, and you're going to take it, and we'll give you this sweetener. We don't know the sweetener. I see a Toyota Super Chat. It says from Ryan Grossnickel, does it sound like anyone on the MLB roster is traded? Shaw, Nico, Alcantara, or all prospects? We don't know that answer. I heard
about one guy that I'm not going to name, and it won't shake your foundation. It's not Matt Shaw, right? But it is a guy that you'll go, oh yeah, not a position player, but one guy I heard on the major league roster that you would go, oh man, okay. But I don't want to say.
But they're not. I'll be floored. I'll drop over and I'll change my mind about the whole. There's only one way this goes bad. Listen, they're not including Nico and Owen Caissie to get this deal done. That's not happening. There's too many injuries on the other side. That's not happening. I don't believe that Matt Shaw is included in this deal.
That's an episode in the upside down, Luke. We're happy right now.
Yeah.
That is the opposite. If that were to come.
Then we'll have a whole nother podcast that everybody can rant and rave about. But thank you for the Toyota Super Chat, Ryan. Yeah.
Can I just add this
against Owen Caissie, just like I don't think it's really against Nico Horner that other teams are asking about players that they think you might have a tiny reason to deal, but that are good and would fit their team. We've said all along about the Nico rumors. It's because he doesn't hit for power and he has an expiring deal. Everybody loves everything else he does, literally everything else he does. But so do other teams. And that's why they're just checking in to see if, like, you think maybe, well, if we're not going to re-sign him and we could do this and we have other options, could we pull Nico Horner off your roster?
Make the call.
I think that's the same thing with Owen Caissie. Cubs were listening to just about anything, but they didn't have to go necessarily probably all in on this because there were some medicals on the other side that arm and elbow that make you say, ooh, let's not go all in on this.
Right. I think that's a great perspective because I feel similar to that in the sense of, and I'll reiterate something I feel like I've said on the show, where I think Owen Caissie has a lot of potential. I don't think the timing is lining up with where the Cubs are with Owen Caissie, right? I think Owen Caissie would benefit from 450 to 500 bats at the major league level and go like this all season long. And yeah, man, strike out 160, 170 times and try and bash your way to 20 bombs and get through it, warts and all, learn a lot, and then see where you are on the other side, right? I think the floor for Owen Caissie can be a guy like Gavin Sheets. I don't know what his ceiling necessarily is. I just know it didn't exactly line up with where the Cubs are right now, because they've made this decision, right? They have a veteran core of players sprinkled in with a few young guys that they've enveloped into the team over the last couple of years. Matt Shaw, Picor Armstrong. I'm still going to say Michael Busch is a pretty young player because he's entering only his third major league season. Cade Horton, Daniel Palencia, Miguel Amaya. All those guys at one point or another had to go through some trials and tribulations to get to where they are now. And Matt Shaw still has a way to go. So having said that, is adding another one onto the plate, with maybe even adding another Mo Baller onto the plate and bringing in Jackson Wiggins next year. It just gets a little dicey for me for a team that's in a cycle right now that should be competing and getting really serious about making some noise in October, which they did just this previous last season. You want to build upon that. So I don't think it has so much to do with Owen Caissie as maybe, yeah, they targeted and valued him as the kind of guy that we like a lot, but maybe he can be the person to transact and extract value that we need in another area right now, which turned out to be controllable pitching. And I think that's maybe just sort of where that lands with Owen Caissie. I mean, I wish him the best if he is in the deal and he moves on to be a Miami Marlin. And I hope that they give him a lot of really good run, but it might have a little bit more to do with timing than anyone else. I got one for you. Because he's just fresh on our mind right now. And when or if this deal gets finalized, all things considered, do you like this more than giving Tatsuya Imai $54 million?
Yeah, I was
upwards of 63.
Too. I'll throw three names in there, right? Imai, doing the deal for Imai, is this a pivot after Imai didn't sign with the Cubs? Or is this something they actually potentially preferred but couldn't quite get done without that sweetener?
And Imai was the backup plan, because they're like, we're banging our head on the wall.
Plan. That's right. And when that was off the table, they said, all right, we're going to do the sweetener. We got to get this done. Let's go get Cabrera. What's more risky? Bringing a guy over that a lot of teams are not sure about, that throws 100 miles an hour and is coming from Japan, but you're not sure, and locking him in for 3 years at way more money, or rolling the dice on these injuries and losing some prospects that you really like. I always have said I would rather go spend the money route because you're the Chicago Cubs. In this particular apples to apples, I would suggest that there's just as much risk in Imai, and this isn't second guessing. I'm just saying, like, if you're just talking about player coming to you, there's just as much risk in Imai, maybe more, because you're talking about big money contract with an opt-out, and you don't know how it's going to play. A lot of teams aren't sure how it's going to play, versus a guy who has proven he can do it at the major league level, might need a tweak of the fastball, most importantly, needs to stay healthy. And the third name I was going to throw in there is the other one we've heard about the Marlins over and over. Would you feel better about this deal going for Alcantara than you would for Cabrera? Let's say whatever this package is, let's say the same package was being asked or offered for Alcantara. Now, more proven, but coming off of Tommy John. Now, he wasn't perfect of it last year, but you could see signs that maybe he was coming back. Which would you rather have a guy that's already had the Tommy John? Or would you rather have the younger guy who's got the high upside and is under control for 3 years? I can't answer that, but I now in hindsight, when I look at it and I say Imai and the money, normally I'd say I would always want to spend the money. But this move now allows the Cubs to spend that money on the bat they still need. Go get one of the bats that you need with your money.
So when we talk about Imai versus Cabrera, I think the one thing that's indisputable that would give me more confidence in Cabrera right now than Imai is that the thing that's indisputable and the thing that I know is certain is Cabrera's changeup and curveball play at the major league level.
Mm-hmm.
And oh, baby, does it play. I mean, the numbers are eye-popping. A 97 mile an hour fastball and a 94 mile an hour changeup that moves in right-handed bat side that almost works a little bit like a two-seamer. It's nasty stuff, right? I mean, that's a known commodity. In terms of ceiling, it's hard to project right with Imai. Having said that, though, when you talk about Sandy Alcantara, that known commodity is also a guy who's a Cy Young candidate when he's right.
Yes.
And a guy who also, let's not forget, in 2020, when no one was in the stands at Wrigley Field, mystified a Cubs offense towards the tail end of the Cubby core. I mean, so he's been in, at least you could say he's been in some sort of postseason action. And he's also a guy that I know out of that Jameson Tyone mode of the Chicago Cubs. Sandy Alcantara gives you 6, 7, 8 innings. He's going to take the ball and he's going to go deep into games. It's a great luxury to have. So all things being equal, I probably would take Sandy Alcantara. The question is now, though, when we get into the baseball nerd stuff, is what is my confidence and faith level in terms of ceiling projection with those three players moving forward? I can't sit here and tell you definitively I know the answer to that question, but I would tell you that if the shoulder stuff wasn't a thing with Cabrera, this would be an easy call between him and Imai. An easy call. I think it's slam dunk, personally, because my confidence and my faith of his ceiling moving forward as he's entering his prime, especially with those two pitches, I would just trust that more than Tatsuya Imai coming over. And I might possibly be wrong. But when you talk about Sandy Alcantara and certainty and knowing what you're getting, the way that he finished out his year, it may give me a little bit more confidence than Cabrera, right? But again, these are all questions. Those are three pitchers that are going to be fascinating to watch next year, of where they go and how they perform. And hopefully for the Chicago Cubs, it's Edward Cabrera coming out number one out of those three.
Yeah, and if you're the Marlins and you have Alcantara and you think he is going to pitch at that level, then that's not the time to necessarily trade him. If I were them, I would roll the dice on Alcantara having a great season and then completely stocking my farm system by trading him at the end of the year. That's what I would do with Alcantara. If I were them, this wouldn't be the time. Cabrera, you're able to trade him now because you don't know what his season's going to be like. He just had 26 starts, the most he's had, and he's had some arm problems. And if you can get this across the finish line, you might be able to get certain guys. I do want to talk about just the potential, since we're near the end of the podcast, like who could be in on the deal. I'll throw a few names out there.
Yeah, quick shout out. 463 people in the chat right now. This is awesome, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. And sports over everything, all that good stuff. It's great. It's a good day to be a Cubs fan. It's
a good day to be a diehard too, because this is what we do. If you don't know, this is what we do. When there's news, we break in and do a podcast. We do them all the time, do them every day, but like here we are. And there's a playoff special right now for $36 introductory offer to get you the Die Hard deal. It's basically $3 a month. And you get the Die Hard card and you get a free t-shirt, which, you can't get too many t-shirts for like $36 right now. So the Iceman t-shirt's out there. Get ready. Whatever shirt you want, you put it on there, but that's the deal. $36 introductory offer for the first year. And it comes with all these stuff written by Jared Willis. It comes with all the stuff written by Hogue and Johns and Jay Zawoski. So every team in town, you're not just getting a Cubs membership, you're getting a Chicago sports diehard membership, and you're getting a free t-shirt. And the diehard card I tell you about, the diehard card comes, it's part of the it's instant credibility. You show it to somebody and they're like, I want to date that guy or girl right there. Look at that diehard card. You put away the gold card and you just hold up the diehard card and they're like, wow.
Are you doing the Wild Wild West trade card guy right now?
This one's really got it going. And I'm dropping the losers. Now I've got a diehard.
I tell you right now, I don't let good deals get by me, baby. $36 initial offer. I'm in. You ever seen that guy before? He's amazing. Yeah.
Okay, so as for, and by the way, we have the tailgate going on Saturday for the playoff game. People,
2 to 6
that
p.m.
tailgate's going to be packed.
Dude.
Packed.
I'm going to be bouncing people left and right. I will be there. Come hang out with me. You'll get a high five.
I'm all for this deal. Even though we don't know the names, and that's why I can't give it a grade yet. But if everything we're reading is true, then we don't believe somebody like Nico is in the deal. We don't believe Jackson Wiggins is in the deal, their top pitching prospect. So most people have speculated, and we'll go ahead. We're a podcast. What do we care? We'll say, let's say it's Caissie, Jonathan Long, who had a really nice season, but probably doesn't fit unless he's some sort of backup on your team this year, and may be a really good 4A player, or might turn out to be a good major league player, but isn't considered a top 2 prospect in your organization. And I don't know, maybe they throw – everybody's wondering, well, aren't they going to want pitching back, right?
No, maybe a top 12, top 15 guy.
I would think the Marlins are going to go for lower level prospects that they want to hit on, right? Like they're hoping you trade them somebody that still has room to grow. They're not really trying to win this year, not if they're trading Edward Cabrera. They're thinking about the future. They're thinking cheap. They're probably thinking there might be a work stoppage. So maybe it's some younger prospects. I've seen a lot of people asking the question, is it going to have to be Wicks or Ben Brown or somebody else? That's a good question. And my question back to you would be, if you had to trade a pitcher back to the Marlins in this deal, would you rather it be or had been Ben Brown or Jackson Wiggins? I can't answer that because I haven't seen enough of Jackson Wiggins. I can't say yes or no, but I still believe in Ben Brown, especially as part of the potential in that rebuilt bullpen. Like we're talking about, yeah, they could have 8 starters. Well, Ben Brown could fit into that mix too. He's shown you some of that, but he also could be part of this rebuilt bullpen that could give you the closer that you're looking for or the setup guy that you're looking for. Daniel Palencia is not going to be in this deal. I'll be shocked if Palencia were in this deal. So would you rather have Ben Brown? Would you rather have Jackson Wiggins? Would you rather, if Wicks is in the deal, I would say you've run your course with Wicks. It's not that I don't like him, but I wouldn't be heartbroken if they put Jordan Wicks in the deal. And I would wish him well and hope he goes on to have a great career. Assad. Would you be upset if Assad was in the deal? I think the name that would scare me the most putting in the deal would be Wiggins, one, but then it'd be Ben Brown.
I think just the way the game works, right, is Jackson Wiggins right now is an ascending prospect coming through the ranks that they anticipate graduating at the major league level and beginning his process as a starting pitcher. And they're going to see where that goes. I think that holds the most value when you come to the table and you start bartering over the different chips that you have. Ben Brown, now while graduated to the major league level, there are a lot of question marks about him as a starting pitcher. We've seen it in the first inning of games, and I think a lot of people now realize that if he doesn't refine or find some sort of third pitch that people can respect and honor, his curveball and his fastball is kind of it. And we've gone over with Ben Brown before that the quality pitches, the fastball in the zone is what bothers me the most and what gets him into trouble. So as of right now, even though Ben Brown is a Major League Baseball player and I like him a lot and he does have value, if I had to put it in a box right now, he is probably trending closer to bullpen than he is being a rotation guy. Jackson Wiggins right now, his projection remains in the starting rotation. So even though I'm not have as much intimate, detailed knowledge of watching every single pitch of Jackson Wiggins' career, I would say his value is more. I think Javier Assad is the third one in that piece, even though he is more accomplished at the major league level than the 3. So that's what makes it kind of funny is what do you value? How do you project? And what do you, when you get something back, what are you trying to extract over a course of time from a player? I think Javier Assad is the most accomplished, even though he would be the third in that ranking.
Let's go overtime. What do you say?
Yeah, let's go a little bit. Let's do it.
Too good to stop the conversation. Got to keep going.
Offense.
Yeah, Ben Brown's an interesting name. I haven't heard his name in the deal, right? We heard maybe lower level prospects. I think most people think Caissie's in on there. We've heard a Cubs reliever possibly being on the sweetener. There's a whole nother podcast once you know who all the names are that are going back. But you have to be satisfied one way or another with the Cubs have added a possibly really good frontline starter. And somebody in the chat here at the live YouTube chat mentioned, hey, what if everybody was back? Like, what if Steele is back? What if Boyd is great? What if Imanaga's awesome? What if yada, yada, yada? What if Horton's the real deal? I could see Cabrera moving to a bullpen role and being like, okay, well, I'm not saying
rally cake.
Beating a lot of rally cake if that's the case. And I did see there was a Marlins fan in here that said, good deal for you guys. I just missed it. It said, as a Marlins fan, good deal for you guys. You got yourselves a bulldog. I hope so. I
also saw
potential there.
I also saw Christina DiNocola. I hope I'm pronouncing her name correctly. She's a beat writer for the Marlins, saying that this deal might not be finalized until tonight or tomorrow, too, as well. So this might be we might be waiting a little bit on this. And yeah, I mean, look, I'm curious. I think it's a trade that could possibly help both teams, right? And those are the best kind of trades to make. And again, like, it does open up the door now. I just want to pull it up here so I get it right. He is scheduled to cost next year $3.75 million. Edward Cabrera with a 94-mile-an-hour changeup and a curveball with a 45% whiff rate. $3.75 million, and then he'll be arbitration eligible for 2 years that are controllable years. That'll obviously jack that number up, but for just next year, Luke, $3.75 million. So I'm not a math whiz, right? But if you look, a lot of people say the Cubs had anywhere between, I believe it was $34 to $37 million left to spend before they're starting to nudge up against that luxury tax. That means, Luke, they have at least $30 more million left to spend. Mm-hmm. Where do you think that leads them?
Offense.
Yes.
Offense. It leads them to spending for a bat. It leads them in that direction. We asked, what's the way to get it done this offseason? Well, the easiest route is to step on all the teams in your division because you have more money and just start spending money. Well, the Cubs don't appear to want to do that, right? They're spending more money than everybody in the division, but they don't want to spend like the Jays, or they don't want to spend like the Mets, right? They don't want to go that crazy. So now that they've made this deal, the most likely route for acquiring what they need, and if we know it, let's hope they know it. I'm sure they do. They know they need a pitcher and they need a hitter. It looks like they're pushing the pitcher finally across the finish line. They're going to finally move some prospects and go get a controllable, because he's controllable and because he's not a high money guy. Now you have the money left to do the other side of it. You do both. You use your money and you use your prospects. And for anybody that says they should only use the money, I hear you. I'm with you on that. But it's not reality. It's not what they're doing. And so let's look at it. Let's just accept it. This is the way they're going to run it. Okay, well, now they can go spend the money. And it doesn't have to be a massive deal. It looks like some of these might be creeping back into their zone. I don't know who it's going to be. I don't know if it is Bregman. I don't know if it is Tucker coming back, or Bellinger, or Bo Bichette. I like all four players. I really do. Like all four players would be a nice add to this Cubs team. But they would accomplish what they could do with money. They could accomplish what we asked them to do going into the offseason. They could have a starter, a high-end starter with a couple questions, adding starting rotation depth. They would have Imanaga back. They would have Cabrera back and now on the team, and they would have Steele back at some point, and then they would have added this bat to fill the hole that possibly is created by Tucker.
And if I can be greedy as a Cubs fan.
Yes, if you could be greedy, what would you do? I got to get one of those 4 players.
Yeah. One of those 4 players, and I'm going to add something to that. Do not trade Nico Hoerner. Okay? I want it wouldn't be an embarrassment of riches, right? But this would provide depth and versatility that I think we've rarely seen on a Cubs team. And I think it would be a team that we would be proud to root for as we celebrate the 10-year anniversary of ending the 108-year drought with the Chicago Cubs. If you add an impact bat and you keep Nico for one more year through the walk year, whether you extend him, whether you end up trading Matt Shaw, whatever the situation is, I just want to roll in opening day, ready to rock, guns blazing, a lot of scenarios and a lot of things that you can solve if things go sideways for you in different ways. That is really exciting to me. I've been pretty much banging the table that I think Alex Bregman is the guy all winter long. I'm feeling a little froggy today. I'm feeling a little frisky. If I had to rank them right now of just what my choice is, and these guys are all sitting out there, I will tell you that now that maybe a possible 27, soon to be 28-year-old Edward Cabrera is now in the rotation with 2 years of control, and we talked about Justin Steele, Cade Horton, all that good stuff, I'm still ranking Kyle Tucker number 1. I'm still ranking Bo Bichette number 2 now, and I got Alex Bregman number 3. The 27-year-old Bo Bichette hitting in the middle of that lineup, surrounded by Gold Glovers, defense be damned, is very, very, very intriguing to me. And the comment from earlier about who's playing left field in 2027, that could be Bo Bichette. It's also, you figure it out, because now you're starting to just collect a young core again, a new Cubby core, right? I love Alex Bregman. He's 32 years old, but again, you're going to have to capitalize on at least those first 3 years of whatever that 4 or 5 year deal is before you maybe start seeing diminished results. That's just father time. The Bo Bichette thing now is very, very, very intriguing to me. I keep Kyle Tucker at 1, not because of it being realistic. I keep Kyle Tucker at number 1 because I just think he's the best hitter of the 3. I just do. I still think he's the best hitter of the 3, and he's 29 years old. He's still sitting out there right now. He doesn't have the deal that he wants. So if it isn't the Blue Jays,
all-around player.
I agree. And we saw what happened, what he does with the lineup when he's out there and he's in there. And you don't really have to change a whole lot, right? And Mo Baller better learn how to be a catcher. Like, okay, you know what I mean? Like, figure it out. So those 3, I would probably rank those 3 right now as the guys that I would most like to see. If it ends up being an Eugenio Suarez or something like that, okay, fine. The Cubs got better, but now you have that $30 million. Please, please, please do not just carry the space and we're going to spend it at the deadline and stuff, because you already said that didn't work last year. Don't anticipate it's going to work this year. Take that $30 million right now, bring in that impact bat, and please, please, please make that not mean you have to trade Nico Hoerner. Just 1 year, guys. Just go for it. 1 year. I promise you, Jed has done a good job. You're going to slide right underneath and have plenty of money to spend and plenty of space to think about financially. The flexibility is there. You've planned for this. This could be Jed's opus, if you will, if you were to try and land an impact bat, add Edward Cabrera, and keep Nico Hoerner. That is my final salvo, my final pitch for what's going to happen moving after this.
Eventually, you got to trade prospects. I'm not into the idea of keeping every prospect and hoping that the ones that hit make their way up to the major league level. You lost Brendan Davis. It didn't work out. Like, you can go through a list of guys that they should have traded at some point when they had a chance. They're finally going to trade some prospects here. And I don't disagree with Brad in live YouTube chat that says a couple of their young guys have to become stars. That is true. But that's true whether you make some of these deals or not. And everybody, before you dog on Bichette's defense, remember, one way to make him not play too much defense is A, he could be your DH. B, have a pitcher who's just going to strike out a lot of guys. And they're adding some of those guys too. So that's another way. I think if once this deal goes across the finish line, assuming the medicals are done, it will make the Cubs better. And it sets them up for domino number 2. It saved them at Cubs convention from sitting there having done nothing. Not that they cared about that, but now everybody can see a vision of this is closer to being adding on to a 92-win team that was 1 win away from going to the NLCS. I can see a path.
Right.
I can see a path.
And Small Ball Queen, welcome back in the chat. 2 days in a row, getting a Cal Ripken streak going together. Thank you for coming back in. She said Kyle Tucker wasn't the best player on the Cubs last year. Okay, that's fine. That's good news. All
Only
right?
because he was hurt.
Yeah, and where the money gets tossed around, like that's none of our concern, right? You want to add good players back into this lineup. And I'll also just say that I always go back and remember this isn't apples for apples, but if you remember correctly, Moises Alou was absolutely terrible his first year of his deal with the Chicago Cubs. And everyone was sitting around saying, what are we doing? What are we thinking? And then he came back and he delivered 2 or 3 really great seasons. He was a great player, was not a good Cub. But again, I'm talking about production only right now. That some guys, sometimes you have the year from hell. Sometimes it doesn't work out the way you want to. I believe in the totality of the resume of Kyle Tucker more than I do the final 2 or 3 months of the season of last year.
All right. I think we've done enough because we don't know the players coming back yet.
Yeah.
Shout out to Michael Cerami for first getting this news across that the Cubs are
trying
to finalize this deal. A deal for Edward Cabrera, who would slide right into the top half of their rotation and make them much better. Once we know what's going on with everything else, don't forget Corey and Brennan also have the Cubs-related podcast coming up tomorrow.
Can't miss. Can't miss.
Pitch Doctor's going to break this down with so many heat maps and graphs. You want to know what about this pitcher? He's going to tell you about the millimeters between this release point and that release point. He's going to have heat maps all over the place, and he'll probably have to sponge himself off because he's going to be so fired up about this Cabrera deal.
I got heat maps everywhere right now.
That's
if you
right.
ran me through an X-ray, I'm
Thanks
firing.
to everybody that joined us in the live YouTube chat for this breaking news edition of the CHGO Cubs podcast presented by our friends at Xfinity. We hope to see you back here. When we know more, we'll do another podcast. That's the way we do it. Don't forget to sign up and be a diehard. Go Bears, go Cubs,
Bears,
go you. Thanks for watching, and don't forget, until next time, fly the W.
We all silly like the mayor.